When the Titanic sank in April of 1912, more than 1,500 people died, but one survivor became infamous. His name was J. Bruce Ismay, and he was the chairman and managing director of the White Star Line, the company that owned Titanic. He was not the captain. He was not steering the ship. He was not on watch when the iceberg appeared. But he was powerful, wealthy, and closely tied to the public image of Titanic itself. And when the ship went down, he survived. To a grieving public, that was enough. Within days, newspapers turned Ismay into one of the most hated men in the world. The story seemed simple. The chairman of the company had escaped in a lifeboat while passengers and crew died in the freezing Atlantic. But the real story is more complicated. So was J. Bruce Ismay really Titanic's villain, or did history need him to be one? Before the disaster, Ismay was not just another first-class passenger. He represented White Star Line at the highest level. Titanic was the pride of the company, huge, luxurious, and meant to show the world what modern ocean travel could be. That mattered after the sinking because Ismay's survival was never judged like the survival of an ordinary passenger. If a school teacher or a merchant or a young immigrant had stepped into a lifeboat with empty space, history probably would not have remembered them as a villain. But Ismay was different. He was the company man, the executive, the face people could attach to White Star's promises of safety, luxury, and confidence. And when those promises sank, he was still alive. One of the biggest accusations against Ismay was that he had pushed Titanic to maintain speed through dangerous waters. The evidence for that is murky. Some witnesses claimed he discussed speed with Captain Smith earlier in the voyage. First-class passenger Emily Ryerson testified that Ismay showed her an ice warning and mentioned that extra boilers would be lit. Ismay denied pressuring the captain. He said he had not ordered Titanic to go faster, had not interfered with navigation, and had not pushed for a speed record. And to be fair, the evidence does not prove that he did. But suspicion lingered, because power does not always have to sound like an order. A chairman aboard his company's newest and most celebrated ship might not need to say, "Go faster," for people to understand that speed and prestige mattered. That ambiguity made Ismay easy to distrust. After the collision, Ismay learned from Captain Smith and Titanic's designer, Thomas Andrews, that the damage was serious. Andrews had inspected the flooding and understood that the ship was doomed. According to Ismay's own testimony, he went on deck and helped with the evacuation. Witnesses described him urging women and children toward the boats and assisting as lifeboats were loaded. That does not make him a hero, but it does matter. The moment that destroyed him came near the end of the evacuation, at Collapsible Sea. Collapsible Sea was one of the last boats successfully launched from the starboard side of Titanic. As it was being lowered, Ismay stepped in. Other men entered too. According to the British Inquiry, the boat still had room, and there were no women or children nearby waiting to enter at that moment. The inquiry did not find that Ismay had taken a seat from anyone else. Still, the image was devastating. Titanic was still above water. People were still aboard, and the chairman of the company was leaving in a lifeboat. To Ismay's defenders, the facts mattered. He had helped with the evacuation, there was room in the boat, and his staying behind would not have saved anyone. To his critics, the symbolism mattered more. A man in his position, they believed, had a duty to stay. Whether or not his death would save another life was almost beside the point. Captains were expected to go down with their ships. Officers, engineers, stewards, and ordinary male passengers had remained aboard. Why should the chairman of White Star Line be different? That is the uncomfortable question at the center of Ismay's story. Is a powerful man obligated to die if his death helps no one? Lord Mersey, who oversaw the British inquiry, essentially said no. He concluded that if Ismay had stayed aboard, he would simply have added one more life to the death toll. Officially, Ismay was not condemned as a man who stole a seat. But public opinion had already reached its verdict. Newspapers and cartoonists turned him into a symbol of cowardice and selfish privilege. The nickname J. Brute Ismay gave the public a villain it could remember. He had a title. He had money. He had survived. And in the aftermath of a disaster that had killed more than 1,500 people, that was enough to make him the target. After Titanic, Ismay's reputation never recovered. He stepped down from the presidency of the International Mercantile Marine Company in 1913. Contrary to some later myths, he did not disappear completely from the world. He remained involved in business and charitable work and lived for many years after the sinking. But his name belonged to Titanic. Whatever else he did, history always returned to Collapsible Sea and the actions he took in the last moments of the dying ship.